group will give a summary of basis and distance. Okay, so in our presentation, there are three main parts. The first one, definition of basis. The second, types of basis, and the last one, conclusions. Okay, so what is basis? So basis, like we use language to point at something, and basic expressions, like any linguistic form used to perform the pointing. For example, like we have here, there, now, then. They are basic expressions. And we have three types of basis. The first one, we have person basis, spatial basis, and the last one, temporal basis. And now welcome to Miss Ngọc for the next part.
Thank you. Personal basis is any expression that is used to point to a person. There are three part divisions here. The first person, I, the second person, you, and the third person, he, she, or it. These three dialectic aspects elaborated with the markers of relative social status, known as the TV distinction. For example, when talking to a lady in Vietnamese, we may use quý bà, cô, or mày, and different choices of words will indicate speakers' different use of the relation with the addressee. Continue. We can use the third person form to show ironic meaning, like would His Highness like some coffee, or to make accusation. Someone just broke his promise, or to state the general, we walk nicely. And please welcome Ms. to continue with the next part.
Okay, for spatial basis, it refers to relative location of people and things, and the location from a speaker's perspective is fixed mentally or physically in terms of dative projection and dramatic performance. And one psychological distance is the meaning is in the context by the speaker. For example, nhà em cách hai bạn đường dài đi xa đường tuy gần mà xa. The distance is in the psychology of the two lovers. And next we move with temporal basis with Ms. Lạc Trân.
Today is a general trend that the notion of play develop into the notion of time. So this explains why some spatial prepositions such as in, on, and develop into time expressions like in the morning, on time, or at midnight. So they are the markers of time on temporal basis. And temporal basis also resemble the spatial basis in the way that it shows how the reference time is far near to the speaker. So we can perceive time as an object that move away from us or move toward us. The expressions such as thu đã về or Christmas is coming, or we can also perceive that we are the speaker as the time travel in time in the expression thankful, or we are coming to the end of the day. So the last part is from Miss T.
Okay, to sum up the presentation, it is noticed that the excess is really a form of wrapping that is closely related to the context of speech. So in other words, the speaker and the hearer have to share the same context to be interpreted correctly. And the most basic distinctions are near the speaker and away from the speaker, which are proximal terms and distal terms. And this diagram can help you to summarize all the things that we have introduced: personal deixis, temporal deixis, and spatial deixis. Thanks all for listening to our presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today we will present about types of deixis. There are three deixis. Number one, personal deixis. Personal deixis concern the person involved in an utterance. For example, trăm năm đành lỗi hẹn hò, cây đa bến cũ con đò khác đưa. Cây đa bến cũ are things that are stationary and cannot be moved, and con đò is a thing that can be stationary and can move. They are used to express the sadness of the couple who love each other but have to be apart. Next one.
Okay, next I want to add more about the person basis, that is the third person. This is the consequently distal forms in terms of person basis. For example, in the poem of truyện Kiều of Nguyễn Du, trăm năm trong cõi người ta, chữ tài chữ mệnh khéo là ghét nhau, and the người ta here represent for the person at that time. And the third person is also a one way of communicating the distance. Or for example, thân em vừa trắng lại vừa tròn, bảy nổi ba chìm với nước non, rắn nét mặc dầu tay kẻ nặng mà em vẫn giữ tấm lòng son, in the poem Bánh trôi nước of Hồ Xuân Hương. And the second person em here is also can understood as the third person is the women at that time. Thank you.
So next one, I'm going to talk about spatial deixis. There is a problem between the concept of distance and spatial deixis. indicating the location of people and things. We have two adverbs below. The first one is here, which is day in the poem của vàng Bắc Xuân Diệu. Của ông bướm này đây, tuần trăng mật này đây, hoa của đồng nộ xanh rì, which is near to the speaker. And the second one is there, which is đó, đi cho biết đó, biết đây, ở nhà với mẹ, biết ngày nào khô, which is more distant to the speaker. And similarly, we have am coming home, which is nearer to the speaker, and am going home, mom, which is more distant to the mom. Thank you. Ms. Thủy, please.
I'm going to talk about psychological distance. It is part of the spatial basis, and it refers to the attribute of close or distance something is perceived, and it means physically and emotionally. So for example, look at the picture here. The boy is really happy with the pens he has, and he said, look at those pens over there. You see that there is the spatial distance very far, but I really like that. That is far too, but here as he means that emotionally it's very near. So this is the psychological distance.
Okay, so in temporal basis, we have now is the proximal form and then is the digital expressions because refer to the back and the future. So in example, then refer to 2010. We also make use of non-dated expressions such as time on the calendar and clock. About the dated expressions such as yesterday, tomorrow, it depends on our depend on our interpretation of the time of the utterance. So, in the example, the teacher said the sentence yesterday, so today referred to yesterday. And as for the psychological basis, we treat the as an object which is moving. So we have the coming month or the past week or this coming month. And a type of temporal basis either choice of verb tense. Apart from two bases, one such as present tense and past tense, we also have to pay attention that the remote and distant form can also be used to communicate the distance from the current reality and facts, which can be seen in the conditional sentence. And that is on our presentation.
Good afternoon, teacher. Good afternoon, everyone. Now I'm going to present to you 3 types of basis. So let's get started with the first one, person basis. So as you can see, it operates in a basic 3-part division, as you can see on the screen. And the third person is not a direct participant in basic interaction. It is an outsider, so obviously it is more important than the other ones. So let's take a look at this example. Thuyền ta lái gió với buồm trăng. So in this case, why Huy Cẩm didn't use họ as the third person? The answer is that he is trying to use an inclusive we, including the writer and the reader, to join together into the activity to feel the spirit of the fishing and to enjoy the wonderful scenery on the sea. So here ta is used to make it closer than họ as the third person, which is more distant. So let's move on to the next part.
In spatial basics, there are some, next slide please, there are some common adverbs and demonstrative pronouns which are used to indicate location of people and things. For example, here, there, this, and that, and these words include the meaning of the motion toward or away from the speaker. Next please. Besides that, location from the speaker's perspective can be fixed mentally and physically. So look at the screen, you can see an example about this. There is a script in the video of Running Man showing Korea. So think about here in the first sentence and that in the second one. When the viewers or listeners watch or hear from the show, they can know that he does not mean their own living place. He refers to the place where the show happened or recorded. Similarly, that in the second sentence, it refers to the homestay that the members stay in the show or the location proximal to the speaker. So Ms. Huan will show a small example.
Okay, so let's take another example about The poem distant from Florida Parker. Where you cross the world, my dear, to work, a love, a light, a coffee come and whisper here and close my eyes at night. So a coffee come and whisper here to show that. So the writer writes about her tragic life, and she's and her lover are apart from each other. So the most powerful feeling is when a person who gave you so much memories becomes a memory. So this time the writer just commemorates the sweet feeling, the happy time one used to have with her lover, to lower the distance between the two people, to show her a psychological distance from this case. Yeah, the next one, please.
There are two types of temporal basis, dated and non-dated. Why dated expression change what they refer to every time they are spoken. The meaning of non-dated temporal phrases don't depend crucially on the time the speaker says the phrase. Now have a look at this. Have a look at the example. If the teacher leaves a message like your assignment must be submitted tomorrow, students may be confused. They may wonder when tomorrow is. The message should be your assignment must be submitted by the 1st of December. Certainly, students know when the deadline of the assignment is. Now, Ms. Lakha, please.
Yes, as for psychological basis, we can treat events as objects coming toward the speaker from the future or going away from the speaker to the park, or can treat the near future as being close to uttering time by using this like this coming week. And about verb form, the present tense is the proximal form and the past tense is the distal form. And sometimes the distal form is treated as distant from the speaker current situation or fact, like I could travel around the world. And thank you for your attention.
Association of basis and the distance. So as you know, there is a close relationship between basis and distance. So there are three kinds of basis: persons, spatials, and temporal basis. In terms of person basis, there are three kinds. The first person or the speaker, the second one is addresses, and the third one is the others. And the second one is spatial basis. It is where the relative locations of people and things is being indicated. And the last thing is temporal basis. That is the proximal and distance forms from the current times. So the next one is beautiful preservation. Thank you.
Yes, the first one is person basics. Person basics associated with the distance through social basics. And there are three kinds of social basics, including social statuses, social contrast, and theory distinction. We can look at the three examples and we can consider in the three examples, you, we, and your majesty indicate the near or far away meaning from the speakers. And in addition, we can also inclusive we and inclusive we also mention the distance. And we can use we or someone for more information. And Ms. Gum will continue the presentation.
The second type of basis is the spatial basis or place basis. It concerns itself with the spatial location relevant to an utterance. Let's look at the example. Number one, I will come later. The verb come in this sentence is used to mark the movement toward the listener. The second sentence, the second example, I don't like that. Now, the situation in this case is that two friends coming in a shop and they smell the perfume from the man near them, and the girl just whisper to her friend, I don't like that. In this example, the woman shows the psychological distance in referring to a physical close smell of the perfume as it was far away. And Mr. Bình, it's over to you to continue the presentation.
Yes, okay. The last is temporal basis. Temporal basis concerns itself with the various times involving and referred to in an utterance. It includes time and verb like now, then, and so on, as well as different verbal tenses. A further example is the word tomorrow, which denotes the next consecutive day after any day is used. And in the screen, we have an example, free gift wrapping tomorrow. If today is Monday, tomorrow will be Tuesday, and it of course depend on the day of today. And besides that, we have some psychological basis like to talk about the event coming toward the speaker, like coming Christmas. For the event away from the speaker, like the past year, and the last one for talking about the event near or immediate future as being close to the utterance, like this weekend. And this is the end of our presentation. Thank you for listening.
Good afternoon, teacher, and good afternoon, class. Today, I'm going to deliver a presentation about the eclectic expressions. As you can see on the screen, there are 5 main parts in the presentation. First of all, what's the eclectic expression? It is any linguistic form to accomplish pointing function, and this is meaningful in a given context. And there are 3 main types of deixis: a person deixis, pointing to a person; a spatial deixis, pointing to a location; a temporal deixis, pointing to a time. Now we move to Miss Yung for the next part.
Thank you, Ms. Ann. So talking about the association between person deixis and the distance, let me introduce the poem Back by Toho. So you can see that the author used the pronouns mình and ta to create a feeling like this is a conversation between people who is very close, very familiar with each other. And we as a reader can feel the affair, the unwillingness of the people who is about to live with that people. So let's move on with spatial.
So as you can see, the spatial deixis here refers to the close distance between the writer and his lover, but also show his desire to be close to her. In contrast to the spatial deixis there, which is distal, that she's made far away and have some temptations that make their love fall apart. So the deixis here is both physical and psychological distance, as in a sense, out of sight, out of mind. Next is temporal.
Okay, so I will talk about temporal deixis with the phrase good old days. By definition, good old days refer to good times in the past. That's a reason why you normally find good old days in past contexts, like those were the good old days, and it makes us feel like good old days were something very far away. But in one of my favorite songs, Keisha sings that someday this will be the good old days. And here very creatively, the singer used past tense to talk about the near future. You know why? Because she wants to convey a very meaningful message here. If you live fully to the present and you cherish every single moment that you have, the present time will become your beautiful memories in the future. Yeah, next.
Okay, so one basic kind of temporal deixis in English is the choice of verb tense. So there are only basic form. The first one is present tense, is the proximal form, like the example I show you on the slide. It's raining heavily now. And the other one is the past tense, is the distant form. As you already know, Leonardo DiCaprio was a known actor then before the Titanic movies. So I think that's all for our reflections on previous lesson. Thank you for listening.